.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. As we continue to talk about this death on the border, we are joined by John Carlos Frey, who is an investigative reporter funded by the Nation Investigative Fund. This was all broadcast on Friday night on PBS's Need to Know. And in their broadcast, they bring you Ashley Young, the new witness who's just come forward to share the video she recorded on her cell phone of border agents beating and tasering Anastasio Hernández Rojas. This is Ashley Young speaking to PBS's Need to Know.
He was just screaming, "Help me, help me, help me," in Spanish. His hands were restrained behind his back.
You could tell that his arms were somehow tied together.
Right.
And Young says she only saw him resist once when officers tried to put him back into the car.
Did he lash out at the officers in any way?
He didn't. He just kind of forced his feet against the frame of the car so that he wouldn't go into the car.
Minutes later, more officers arrive.
Another officer arrived and pulled out a taser and said, "Stop resisting."
Was he resisting?
No. The first tase, it was a shock. And people were like, why would they do this? And after the first tase, when he got tased several more times, that's when people erupted.
That's when, standing on this overpass with other bystanders, she shoots this. You can see Hernández Rojas on the ground, surrounded by more than a dozen officers. Need to Know has brightened the video to make it easier to see. One agent at the top of the screen pulls off Hernández Rojas's pants and walks away with them. But it's not until a few seconds later, when things appear to calm down, when an officer turns on his light, that we see an agent's bare leg as he kneels on what appears to be Hernández Rojas's neck.
The next thing that happened is he stopped moving and he was convulsing during the tase. And then after the tase stopped, he just kind of lied there. I think I witnessed someone being murdered.
That was Ashley Young. She was on her way back from Tijuana to where she lives in Seattle. She was speaking to John Larson of PBS's Need to Know in this exposé that aired on Friday night on Need to Know. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We're joined by John Carlos Frey, the investigative reporter who worked with John Larson on this piece. He's in Los Angeles. And María Puga, the widow of Anastasio Hernández Rojas, who was killed in May 2010. Christian Ramírez is translating for her. María Puga, our condolences on the death of your husband, Anastasio. You have sued the government. Can you talk about what his death has meant to you and your 5 children?
Nuestras condolencias por el fallecimiento de su esposo. Ha demandado al gobierno de Estados Unidos. ¿Qué significaba la muerte de su esposo para usted y para sus 5 hijos?
Gracias. Ha sido un dolor bien grande.
Thank you. It has been a very painful moment for us.
Can you talk about the effect? Can you talk about Anastasio Hernández Rojas, your husband's death, what it has meant for your family, what you understood happened at the time?
¿Qué ha significado la muerte de Anastasio Hernández Rojas para su familia y qué sucedió según lo que usted entiende en la frontera esa noche?
Ha sido un dolor bien grande para la familia, para mis hijos, sus papás, sus hermanos. Pero ahorita los más afectados creo están siendo mis hijos.
It has been very painful for all of us, for his brothers, his parents, for me, but perhaps the ones who are suffering the most right now are our children.
Mis hijos todo el tiempo me están preguntando que dónde está su papito, que por qué mataron a su papito. Es una respuesta que yo no les puedo dar porque ni yo misma sé por qué hicieron este abuso tan grande que claramente se escucha en el video.
My kids ask me all the time, why did they kill my daddy? What happened to my daddy? And it's a question that I myself have no answers to because I don't know why they did this to him. It's clear now that they beat him severely on that video.
What does it mean to you, Maria, that these witnesses have come forward and shown the videotape they took on their cell phones?
¿Qué significa para usted, María, que estos testigos hayan salido a la luz pública y hayan compartido estos videos con usted?
Pues yo a estas personas se los agradezco de todo corazón, que sin ellos, pues el caso de mi esposo ya estuviera en el olvido.
I'm very thankful for the eyewitnesses to have come forward and share this video with the public. Without them, the case of my husband would have been forgotten.
You are suing the U.S. government now, María Puga?
¿Estás demandando al gobierno de Estados Unidos, María?
Está una demanda, pero no hemos tenido respuesta. Lo que estamos buscando es que se haga justicia.
We have filed a civil suit, but we haven't had a response yet. What we are really asking for is justice to be served.
How old are your children?
¿Qué edad tienen sus hijos?
El más grande tiene 22, 20, 13 y tengo unos twins de 6 años.
The oldest is 22, 20, 13, and I have twins who are 6 years old.
John Carlos Frey is also with us in Los Angeles. Can you talk further about the lawsuit and movement now that this is getting national attention on the part of the U.S. government?
Well, Amy, I wish that there was movement from the federal government. There is an attorney who has filed a civil suit against the federal government, a wrongful death suit on behalf of the family. As far as we know, that case is still not yet been scheduled. As I said before, none of this new evidence has been petitioned by the Justice Department. The Justice Department hasn't even spoken to any of the eyewitnesses directly. They have not asked for the videotape evidence. And so this case seems to still be on the shelf. We're hoping with this new information and with the media attention that it forces the hand of the U.S. government to bring this case forward. We're hoping that there are criminal proceedings here. None of the officers involved for the past 2 years, from our understanding, have been reprimanded. They have remained on the job. The individual who used the taser 5 separate times on a man who was handcuffed on the ground, he's still on the job. His name has not been released to the public. There are no criminal proceedings, and it looks like the Justice Department isn't going to bring any criminal proceedings in this case. The only hope that the family has for justice is the civil suit, which is yet to be scheduled.
What do you mean it looks like they will not bring criminal charges? Why not?
That's a really good question. We would like to know that, too. As I said, the Justice Department is not moving forward with any investigation. If they were going to bring criminal charges, we would think that the Justice Department would want to interview the eyewitnesses. They would want to get a copy of the videotape. They would want to get the information that we have, and that has not happened. So there doesn't seem to be any movement here at all.
John Carlos Frey, who do the Border Patrol answer to? Can you explain this largest police force in the United States?
Yeah, it's a really wonderful question because it is the largest police force in the United States. The Customs and Border Protection numbers over 60,000 employees, and they answer to themselves. The FBI does not oversee them. The CIA does not oversee them. The Department of Homeland Security, which is the umbrella organization, is the only oversight committee here. We do not have any public scrutiny. If you ask the Border Patrol, which we did, for use of protocol or a use of force protocol. When can they fire a taser? Are they allowed to fire a taser when somebody's handcuffed on the ground? Is that part of protocol? All we get back are redacted documents. They are not transparent, and they answer to no one. So it's very hard to get information. As you know, the statement that you read at the top of the show is the statement that the Border Patrol have been giving to everybody, that we conduct ourselves with the utmost integrity. Well, I believe a part of that is true, but in this case, they have not been. So they're not answering direct questions. They're issuing blanket statements, and so is the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice for 2 years has said this case is under investigation, yet there has been no investigation by the Justice Department. So this just seems to be going in a circular pattern, and the family waits and waits.
In your Los Angeles Times op-ed piece, John, you write about 8 deaths. Talk about the span of time that these men have been killed over, these immigrants, and what happened to them.
In the past 2 years, there have been at least, from our own documentation, 8 migrant killings by the hands of U.S. Border Patrol. 1, Anastasio Hernández Rojas, the case we're talking about now. The other 7 were killed with guns. Some individuals were shot in the back. Some individuals were shot in the head. 3 of the individuals were actually standing on Mexican soil when the U.S. Border Patrol fired their weapon from the United States, shot and killed. None of these 8 cases were the migrants armed. In some cases, the migrants were throwing rocks, and according to Border Patrol, rocks are considered lethal weapons. So the Border Patrol can actually fire and kill or shoot to kill if somebody is throwing a rock. And again, all of these cases are very mysteriously guarded. None of the officers have been reprimanded. This is a very rare occurrence at the border when an officer fires his weapon. In the past 10 years, there have been very few cases, but in the past couple of years, there have been an escalation of cases. The Mexican government actually says in the past few years there have been 18 killings of migrants by U.S. Border Patrol. So we only have access to the ones that actually make it to the media. And we think that the problem is because the Border Patrol force itself has doubled in the past couple of years with very little oversight, with lowering of standards for recruits, and there's no accountability here. There's no punishment here. So the Border Patrol are acting with impunity.
There has been a very different reaction in the Spanish press than the English language press. It's been huge in the Spanish press. In this country, can you talk about that difference and also what it would mean if there was a response as happened in the case of Trayvon Martin?
Imagine if 8 U.S. citizens were gunned down in their own country or all along the border by Mexican government officials with no explanation. That's what's happening in Mexico. We're coming up on the 20-year anniversary of Rodney King. The video that we exposed on Friday on Need to Know is a Rodney King-style video, and that's why there's outrage in Mexico. This is one of their own being brutally beaten by, it looks like, 20 officers, being tased while you're handcuffed, and of course it's going to be an outrage, as the Rodney King video and the Trayvon Martin case, which you mentioned, is here in this country. This is an undocumented immigrant. We have dehumanized this population to the point where, so what? If the Border Patrol kills someone, I'm sure people think that he probably had it coming. This was a man who had roots in the United States. He has 5 U.S. citizen children. You spoke to his partner, Maria, who is suffering, trying to raise 5 children. This is a serious story, and I think it needs that kind of attention, yet the Justice Department and the Border Patrol are not willing to comment.
Finally, María Puga in San Diego. What do you want to leave us with in the case of your husband, or more importantly, who Anastasio Hernández Rojas was?
¿Qué quiere dejarle al público sobre el caso de su... ¿Qué mensaje quiere dar al público sobre el caso de su esposo? ¿Y quién era Anastasio Hernández Rojas?
Anastasio era una persona muy trabajadora, era un hombre muy carismático, muy buen padre, muy buen esposo.
He was a very charismatic man, a very hard worker, a loving husband, a wonderful father. ¿Qué mensaje le quieres dar al público?
El mensaje que les quiero dar es que queremos que nos apoyen, que nos ayuden, que lo que yo estoy buscando para mi esposo es justicia, que ya no debemos de permitir todos estos atropellos. Ningún ser humano se merece lo que le hicieron a mi esposo, porque claramente se mira cómo están torturando a mi esposo. Llegaron todo el tiempo, lo torturaron, claramente se mira a mi esposo, en ningún momento se estaba resistiendo. Fue un abuso muy grande de estos agentes, y lo que estamos pidiendo, la familia Hernández, mi familia, que la dejaron destruida, la destruyeron, queremos justicia.
I just want justice. I want your audience to know that we are asking them for justice. I want to let them know that my husband was tortured, he was severely beaten, and they've destroyed an entire family. All we want is justice, and we need your help to get that justice.
María Puga, I want to thank you very much for being with us, widow of Anastasio Hernández Rojas, who was killed in May 2010 by Border Patrol in California. Thank you to Christian Ramírez for translating. John Carlos Frey, thank you for joining us and your excellent reporting, funded by the Nation Institute, working with John Larson, PBS's Need to Know, for this superb report. We will continue to follow it and link to the full video report at PBS Need to Know. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. Back in 30 seconds.